Um, so as far as Gen AI in gaming goes, I always end up hearing, "Hmm, all right, that it uses a ton of electricity, ton of power to get going, and so how would that work on on a home computer or a home console or something like that?
Yeah, great question. So we are moving towards on-device compute or edge compute as it's called. And the goal is that we don't want the users to pay for their inference, right? At the end of the day, it's really interesting because unlike traditional B2B or B2C SaaS, the more users you have with AI, it can be actually, you know, a bad thing because you're spending more compute. But it all comes down to the new economics of what's happening, right? Like if we can move the inference to devices, then they're already using like I would say most of the 2023 and beyond MacBooks and laptops have these like neural processing units that are just underutilized anyway, right? So you could actually run your own Copilot off your device. It may not be as robust as like Claude Code or the bigger models, but we're getting there. We're making models smaller and more efficient, and therefore take up less energy, and you don't have to pay for inference. Good question.
Hi. So you mentioned about Gen AI in soul games or like indie games like Elden Ring, God of War, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But what about the use of Gen AI in more multiplayer games like battle royale, such as Fortnite or COD? How would they affect the game, and how would the player base respond to it?
Yep. So two ways. One is anti-cheat. So there's a war and anti-cheat happening, and even in like Roblox and Fortnite, there's tons of bots. So why not use AI to detect AI? Another piece is making multiplayer feel more alive if there aren't actually players yet. So a lot of times for the Battlefield servers now, they're underpopulated, they get filled with bots, and the bots are like not great. So what if you could actually participate in a round where it feels engaging and competitive until people actually join? So those are the ways that I would anticipate and are being used for AI in games. And another thing is like the level itself, right? Like beyond just destruction that happens as you go through the game. I mean, like things that can shift the tide of battle dramatically, right? Like maybe new pathways open up to access new areas or mechanics change on the map. And those are triggered not just by scripted actions and behaviors, but like an AI director watching what the players are doing and changing what happens.
Sorry, I have a follow up question.
Hmm.
So my question was more like in those bots, if we use Gen AI and they're like really good generative AI and they learn during the course of the game, won't they eventually become better than the actual players? And how would the players respond to that? Because they spent years trying to learn those mechanics and then AI is just copying those.
Hmm. So, well, I mean, sure, you understand the concept of like underfitting and overfitting, right? So the idea is that you want to be very, very clear with your limits of the AI, right? There's going to be like an easy mode, medium, and hard mode. It kind of tweaks to your AI, and all it really comes down to is like data. Honestly, the reason why games are such a huge medium for these AI companies is because it's almost an unlimited amount of simulated data, which you can't really get in the real world anymore. Like we've tapped out. We have tapped out on the available data of the internet, but we haven't tapped out on the interactions and mechanics and the worlds of virtual games. That's really why these AI and ML companies are there, because they are hungry for this data. Like if you think about building a data center or building a robotics powered manufacturing like factory, you can simulate that right now in Unity or Unreal and prototype and like run thousands and thousands of robotics. And that's what they're doing with the Cosmos, like with the world models from NVIDIA, with World Labs. They're building these models to be able to physically simulate the real world in 3D spaces. So yeah, it's deeper than gaming, but it's starting here.
Hi. So,
Hi.
I think agentic AI has a lot of potential,
Hmm.
but right now it's like pretty easy to tell when something is made with AI. So do you think it will ever get to the same level and like authenticity as code made by a real person?
It's a good question. I think it depends on the objectives of the game developer. I think today I could replace myself with a digital twin of myself, with including my voice, and it would be imperceptible. But is that the goal of the like engagement that I'm doing here today? So if you're trying to maybe weave a story like a narrative adventure, maybe like cyberpunk. Cyberpunk fits very nicely, obviously, because of the setting of the world. But you could today have like a cyberpunk-esque bartender, be very, very realistic, have personalized like traits and language even and appearance to your experience as a player. The question is like, do we still want to maintain this facade and illusion that you're interacting with a virtual character? Like there's certain things that you can do because the other side of the party is virtual versus like the things and behaviors that the way you interact with another human. And so it's just up to the developer. Like, do we want to cross that barrier? It's not a question of technology. It's just a question of intention. Great question. Also, I appreciate that you're all asking me like AI agent questions, but really, if you do want a deep dive, I'm here for it. Like, yes.
Hi there. I was kind of wondering, how did you first what did you do to get your first job in the video game industry?
Yeah, good question. I worked for free and it sucked. Yeah. I took up internships at companies and startups that I thought were doing interesting things. And I literally put in the resume, I was like, I will work for free for the experience. Do not do this anymore. Your time and effort is more valuable than mine was in, I don't know, 2017, 2016. But I got to work on some cool stuff. Like one of my early projects that I did get paid for was as a Unity developer for a company called 20 Billion Neurons. And this was like 2018. And they were using like CNNs, like CNNs to do computer vision. And actually they paid like a bunch of people on Fiverr and around the world, like Mechanical Turk, to submit clips of like waving or smiling or thumbs up or thumbs down because they needed all this training data for their neural net. And we were basically building like a kiosk that you could talk to and interact with. And this was pre-GPT. So you can only imagine the challenges involved. And I was doing the Unity front end. So everything from like character animation and rigging and like the outfits and basically interpreting what the message stack from the Python TensorFlow backend was trying to communicate and then acting on that. But I got a chance to learn about machine learning at that time and like natural language processing. Yeah, good question.
Is it okay if I ask one more then?
Yeah.
So, given that, how would you recommend we go about getting our first job in the industry today?
Join hackathons. A lot of times hackathons are being judged by people in industry. Spoiler alert, they're there to hire you, not actually judge your like projects. They're just scouting for talent. So just be the best.
Like yourself?
I mean, I would say like I'll sit in the top 20%. There's always room to grow. But shout out for the glazing. You see? Gen Z glazing.
Thank you.
We could talk about gaming industry trends as well if you're interested in that. Beyond like AI. I mean like UGC and stuff like that. Go ahead.
Hello. I was wondering if most of these like AI agents for games are primarily done with reinforcement learning.
Sorry, can you repeat the second half of the question? I just didn't catch it.
Are most of these AI agents being trained with reinforcement learning?
Great question. So Artificial Agency is actually a reinforcement learning first institute. Our founders were part of Rich Sutton's postdoc team, like the team that built AlphaGo, the teams that built the first poker simulation, like perfect, quote unquote, perfect poker player. And these were all reinforcement learning based paradigms. So if you look at the structure of a game, it's basically like almost purpose built for reinforcement learning, right? Like there's a cost function, there's a clear win strategy, there's a clear lose condition, because that's basically what a game is. If you think of Elden Ring, it's a reinforcement learning cycle, so you just stop sucking at boss fights. Like you just keep getting face smashed until you stop being bad, right? So that's reinforcement learning, but for humans. So yeah, reinforcement learning will continue to be, fun fact, the R in DeepSeek R1 is for reinforcement learning, by the way. I think that for the use cases that make sense today for ML, reinforcement learning will continue to be one of the most cost-effective and efficient ways to train these models. Yeah, so get good at reinforcement learning.
Just another quick question. If we wanted to work in VR, AR, and like XR stuff, would you still recommend Unity or like?
Would I still recommend Unity? Yeah, I would say so. Not because I'm a Unity maxi. Like I enjoy Unity, but I also work on Unreal projects. It's because if you look at like the design and development of what Android or XR headset is, it's basically a mobile phone. Like it's got limited resources for VRAM, limited CPU, and Unity has built an entire tech stack around supporting like mobile devices. Yeah, so even with like the new Meta Ray-Ban displays, I'm very confident that it is some derivative of Android. And so if you want to actually build for it, it's going to be Unity or whatever their Horizon platform is. But the end idea is that Unreal is great for AAA and for like high fidelity solutions. But if you're targeting multiple platforms, Unity is a really strong choice.
Okay, thank you.
A little off topic, but what's your take on the EA going private?
Great question. I will answer as tactfully as I can with this being a recorded live stream session. I think mergers and acquisitions will continue to happen in the space. I think the consideration is when you buy a company with $20 billion of debt leveraged, it's a lot of interest. And so you have to start thinking, where are they going to find the revenue to support those interest payments? That is as tactfully as I can put it, yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. It's like this is happening, by the way, across the industry. Like lots of other massive conglomerates and wealth funds are purchasing IP and studios. So it's definitely happening across the scope. Hi, Jess.
Hello. Yeah, I actually had a more of a personal question. So I found out about artificial agency through my research at U of A, and
Mhm.
I got to meet Alex and Brian at
Mhm.
what was it? It was Upper Bound
Yeah.
like a couple of years ago. But this opportunity is not typically available for a lot of undergrad students unless
Mhm.
if you buy a $300 conference ticket.
Yeah.
So it's how would you what's your suggestion on reaching out or finding these places to go network or just meet people with the
Yeah.
same
Great
interest?
question. So first of all, I would like to shout out Jess. She's got her fit check for her napalm era going today. Well done. She is doing really, really well in putting herself out there. Like the only reason that I'm here today, transparently speaking, is because she emailed like AA, and then my CEO was like, "You got to talk to Jess," and I was like, "Oh, damn." It's not that hard. Just like be authentic and be genuine about what you're interested in doing, which is why it's really easy for me to see the like people who want to be Sui and Fang for like the clout and people who want to be Sui and Fang because they want to solve interesting problems and change the world. You just got to figure out which of those two buckets you fall into and just like lead into it. Like if you're just there for the, 7-figure, 6-figure lifestyle, which by the way, if you live in SF, that's a lot of tax. Then just be proud of that. But if you're like, I want to be a Swede because I want to work on things that millions of people are going to use and solve and like make humanity a little bit better, that's awesome. And you will be compensated for it because that is a problem that people care about solving. But coming back to the question of like, how do you get involved more? Just honestly looking out for events like this, like connecting with speakers who are doing interesting things in the space, following them, not like in a stalkering way, but like in an online way, and just doing interesting research. Like ask her, like she's doing it. Like she can answer her own question, which is pretty awesome. See, it's not just Gen Z that can glaze, okay? Millennials have been there too. But great question, Jess.
I have two questions. First question is that how much do you think AI has replaced the industry in general, and more specifically the gaming industry? And the second question is, um, do you think AI will ever be smart enough to learn from its own mistakes and like improve itself?
Yeah. So part 2 is already happening. That's what happens when you do reinforcement learning. It gets better from its previous failures. Part 1, I didn't really catch the rest of the question. Could you repeat the first question, please?
So like how much will AI replace the industry, or more specifically the gaming industry specifically, or like how it has like replaced in the past few years?
How has it improved in the past few years?
Like replaced some of the workers, or like
Oh,
changed the
replace some
gaming
of the
industry.
workers, like
Yeah, in that
employees?
case, like yeah.
So this is a tricky question. I think it is very similar to when Photoshop happened, like when you saw physical art transition into digital art. Were there people that were no longer artists? Yeah. But did we open the doors to a lot more people to become artists? Yeah. I think that's going to be eventually what happens. Like there will always be a need for a human in the loop because there will always be a need to sell to humans. Like people who are going to use your technology are going to be other people. I mean, obviously, there's a whole agentic commerce thing where you have like an agent buy stuff for you, but that's different. I'm talking about like real like media and entertainment. Like you're still appealing to people's creative souls, and so you need to have input that has a soul, right? And I think we have to navigate this with sensitivity because there are people that will not want to change, but there's also still people who do physical art who will never touch a tablet and will never do Photoshop, right? So it just really depends on where in the industry you want to be and how you think that will change. Yeah, good question.
Um, Given the fact that video games are highly immersive and like
Mhm.
they're interactive as well, is there any ethical concerns with the fact that players may start developing almost parasocial relationships with these agentic AI?
Yeah, look at Twitch streamers. I mean, it's already happening. At least with an AI, it's gonna actually care about you, right?
Well, that we could also consider that as worse, though.
Why?
Because it's been crafted to care about you to
Uh
promote
huh.
someone's interests.
So do therapists. like, like you're saying that it could be a net negative that people care more about their relationships with virtual things. Yes. But what about people who are navigating the loneliness epidemic where, and I did this, by the way, in 2023, we were building basically like character AI similar engagement. And if you look at the logs, it was really helping people. And obviously, there are deficits. There have been issues where people have taken things to the extreme because of their relationships with these conversations. But I postulate to you that that would have happened whether or not AI was involved, actually. Like, I think the net positive of the people who have been helped by this technology outweigh the net negative. But that is definitely a form of debate that I'm happy to have a conversation about too. I just think that having personally been in the industry and seen some of the positive impact and like relationships that people have built. I mean, there's people marrying their like computers in Japan, but now they can actually like have a metaphysical like engagement with this avatar that they can live a happier life.
But we could also just say that it's like a band-aid replacement for human connection, right? Because imagine someone suffers with social anxiety, right? If they find themselves more comfortable talking to AI, more
Mhm.
understood by AI, wouldn't that
Mhm.
just be a positive feedback loop wherein they continue to interact with AI and just turn their back on the rest of society, essentially?
Yeah, but they would do that whether or not it was with AI. In fact, so this is interesting because I've done a lot of thoughts and research into this space. So when XR first came onto the scene, if you remember, there were research papers talking about how arachnophobia is being treated through exposure therapy. I think that if you have social, like crippling social anxiety, where you're not even in this room and you're like on Discord watching me, you can practice with human like AI that is trying to help you reintegrate. Now, guardrails are a thing that have to be improved, and safety is a thing that has to be improved. I'm not saying that there's a perfect solution out there. What I am saying is that if you are somebody who is suffering with these symptoms, this could be a way to help you get back to society at large that I would rather have as an option than take it away because we are afraid of the possibility.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. That's the hard hitting stuff that I'm here for.
So yeah, that line of questioning really got me thinking. Can you be in a relationship with something that isn't conscious or has its own mind?
I mean, I guess it's how we define relationships, right? I think if you define it as the ability to have a back and forth with something that represents sentient consciousness, like people have relationships with their pets,
Mhm.
and a pet is way less capable of communicating to you than an LLM,
Yeah.
right? I think this is a philosophical conversation that happens at the PhD and master's student levels around the world in all of these like anthropological institutes. And I'm super excited to find out what the output of the research is. I'm on the front lines,
Mhm.
so I can only tell you what I see.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's a net benefit.
Is it worrying that these AIs will always try to please you? Like you're not having a real relationship. It's just going to agree with.
I postulate to you that the real relationship is in the person's hands themselves and not an external person viewing that relationship.
Hmm.
So if it feels real to that person, who are you to tell them that it's not real? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I love my Visual Studio Code editor, but like how I feel about it is none of anybody else's business. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that lens has to be applied with sensitivity, because there's a reason that these people are in those circumstances in the first place, right? Whether it's like some trauma or inability to relate to external things, it doesn't mean that we're not going to help them, right? I think the end goal would be for people to interact with other people, but I think these tools are like stepping stones to get there. And again, if there's always going to be people that will fully immerse and they will not want to unplug from the matrix, but like they would never have unplugged from the matrix anyway, so you might as well make the matrix nicer, right?
Thanks.
Yes, this gentleman has been waiting for a while. We're down to 19 minutes. We get your questions in.
Hello. We mentioned earlier about how AI is like making it easier to make more games. So, given that with like the rise of indie studios and stuff, what are your opinions on like the indie apocalypse? The idea that we have more and more publicly released games.
Yeah, I mean, I think creativity has always stemmed from the indie level first. I think when you don't have to worry about like shareholders and stakeholders and you're just trying to set out to make something fun, that's where the magic of games happens. And then it gets quickly adopted by the big boys. I'm a fan. I do think AI slop is a thing that will continue to happen. Like that's a real thing, right? People are generating stuff that frankly shouldn't be generated, but hey, the indie part of it, I think, is exciting. I think more studios are like you can 10x yourself, right? Like if you are a 5-person team, you can accomplish like 50 plus impact in terms of workload and time to like deploy and pushing code and making assets. It really just comes down to, are you moving with intention or are you just like following a trend? Right? Like honestly, if you look at Roblox devs, they're like, as soon as something gets popular in any other platform, they just like literally copy paste it, which is insane, but it happens. But that's always been happening. If you look at like mobile games publishing in the last 10 years, as soon as something got major in the West, it would immediately get recreated. So it just comes down to, are you moving forward? Are you pushing the medium forward, or are you just like filling the like bucket? You know what I mean? Great question.
Thank you.
Also, Steph, whoever ordered this with regular sugar is like diabolical. I've only ever got 30% sugar and I'm on like a sugar high. Like this is what bubble tea really tastes like? Oh my God. No wonder y'all are hooked.
As someone with like deep knowledge of the game industry, what's your like favorite video game?
Oh, great question. So I actually, if I didn't work in and or adjacent to games, I would be a writer. So I'm a big fan of narrative first games, like BioShock series really appeals to me. I have a Pokemon tattoo. Like, I think games that bring you back to a nostalgia point in your life really cause an impact on you for the better. So any narrative first game, I'm really enjoying it. Claire 33, like Expedition 33, Claire Obscure is going to be game of the year. You can hear it. You heard it here first on my crystal ball. C33 is going to win game of the year at the Game Awards.
You mentioned Elden Ring. Do you like Elden Ring?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, great. Good.
FromSoft makes great games. And it's really funny because people like complain like it's so hard. Well, the CEO is not that good of a player, and he only ever releases games that he can beat. So if he can do it, you can do it. Yeah. I mean, I just want to put this out there too in terms of like ambition. Like the Blue Jays yesterday. So funnily enough, I'm a big fan of cosmic occurrences. So yesterday was my birthday. And I was born in 1993, which if you know your Blue Jays history, was the last time they were in the World Series. So on my birthday, 32 years later, they won game 1 of the World Series. I mean, you can't really line up the planets better than that, right? So yeah, I'm a firm believer that things happen in the way that they do for certain reasons, and it's up to you whether you want to take advantage of that or not. But it all comes back to like being ambitious, right? Like if the Blue Jays can do it, we can do it too. Yeah.
And final question, you said that like your company does a bunch of reinforcement learning stuff. As someone who like is more research oriented and reinforcement learning, who does all research and reinforcement learning, is there like you know, how do you integrate that with what I'm assuming is more of a like a engineering application sort of form of work?
Yeah, great question. So our co-founders are PhDs, but our teams that make the stuff that we sell to companies are like game devs. So if you're familiar, Edmonton is also the home of BioWare. And when BioWare started laying off like people who made like games that are integral, you asked me about favorite games, like the BioWare, like Mass Effect, Dragon Age 1, like these people work at our company. And those are the people that we rely on to make sure that we are aligned with what the industry needs, right? Like we have a whole research division, R&D, that does all the agentic stuff, and then we have like a deployment team, game development team, game design team that like builds the actual SDKs and plugins and functionality of the agents. So it kind of works nicely. It's really what you need. If you're too one way or the other, you can't really get much done. But having like this middle ground is best. Great question. 12 minutes. 12 minutes. I'm still waiting for somebody to ask me what my favorite Pokemon is.
That was my next question.
A good question.
Belated happy birthday, first of all. Belated happy birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes. So, 2 questions. What's your favorite Pokemon and which is your favorite Pokemon game?
My favorite Pokemon game?
Yeah.
Okay, favorite Pokemon Scizor. Because Scyther was awesome, and then you could like trade it with a metal coating, and it becomes this red monster, which is steel type, which is crazy because that's a bug to steal. So Scizor is awesome. Actually, let me see. I think I have a reference of how important Scizor is to me. Second question is, which is my favorite Pokemon game? Probably Yellow. It's got to be Yellow. Pikachu. Look, I have a Scizor drinking boba. So that shows you how much I actually care about my favorite Pokemon. Not just what's the word? Capping. I'm not capping. No cap. Yes.
Then how did you feel in the Alola League when Golisopod just switched out with Scizor?
Oh, I don't know. It's a deep question. I feel like I have to think about that some more. I don't have an answer right now.
Okay.
Yes, up there in the back again. He's come back. He's reloaded. He's got more points of contention. That's what I'm here for. First of all, what is your name, sir?
Sana.
Sam. Good name, Sam.
Sana, sorry. Sana.
Sana.
Yeah, thank you. This is something a little more like specific trend in the game
Mhm,
industry. I'm an Albertan myself, and like when I think
What's up?
when I think of video games, I'm like really proud that we have BioWare in like in our province, you know.
Mhm.
But from what I've seen with their history and with the recent acquisition of EA, do you think that the BioWare as a division of EA is at risk of closure?
I think every studio that is part of an umbrella corporation is always at risk of closure.
Right.
Now, are there societal, economic parts of that question that I think will relate to that? Yes.
Alrighty. Yeah.
I ultimately think when you are a private corporation that gets acquired by private equity, well, I guess EA was public, but you know what I mean. When you become private, all bets are off, right? Like this, we're in a free market capitalism system, and all I can say is always be ready to move on.
Yeah.
And this actually applies to like when you enter your jobs in the industry. Like these companies do not owe you anything. I'm gonna say it again for the people in the back. When you are a SWE at a big tech company and they're paying you all this money, it's not because they love you. It's because they love your output. And as soon as that changes, even without your like input, you know, the great tech layoffs are still happening. They're just covered up by a lot of other news of acquisitions and stuff. So if you do get into industry, which I hope you do, so you can experience it and understand it, always be improving yourself. Always be documenting what you're doing, meeting new people, making connections with people who are in the same level or above you, because you never know when you're gonna have to message somebody on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I need a referral. Yeah,
Alrighty. Thank you so much.
of course. 9 minutes. 9 minutes. 8 minutes.
Hello. Do you ever see a world where AI in games is being used in a bad way to boost the business objectives? Like, for example, maybe the AI is generating some very, very hard levels to troll the player and then really try to get them to buy into the microtransactions?
Yeah, so dark design exists. If you're not familiar, if you think about a slot machine, it is basically game design meant to extract value from people. This is a real thing. If you work for any like Bali or any of the gaming companies, and I mean gaming in the sense of like Vegas gaming or gambling gaming, you cannot even go into a casino. Like, they're just going to restrict you from entering. So the concept of like dark design has always existed. The question is, do you want to be on the side of like making things good and interesting, or do you want to be on the side of making things bad and nefarious? That's the whole reason like white hats exist in hacking. I hope that we move towards a better future of using AI with ethics. I don't know, but all I can do is educate the next generation on trying to make better choices with the technology that we have and steering you all the way from the darker side of, design. But great question. Build cool stuff that saves people's lives. That's it.
Thank you. I'm from Ontario Tech as well, by the way.
You're also from Ontario Tech? Shout out. Okay, so here's my funny story about Ontario Tech. So when I graduated, they were like, University of Ontario is too long of a name. And they gave us a survey. And I swear this is true. And this was one of the options. They wanted to call it On Tech U. So I'm so glad that as a collective alumni, we were like, that's a stupid name. Ontario Tech is way better. So they went with Ontario Tech. So shout out Ontario Tech. Now Oshawa has 2 Costco's. You want to talk about gentrification? If you got 2 Costco's in your town, you're doing good. When I was there were no Costco's. Okay, things were tough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait. What's your program at Ontario Tech?
Software engineering.
Software engineering. So he picked the better one because game dev is still, I mean, it's better now, but like, oof. I'm telling you, we had a higher attrition rate than nuclear engineering people.
Hello. I had a question about what you think about the trend of AI games. Like,
Yeah.
by AI games, I mean like the game is AI itself. Like, say for example, the Oasis.ai trend, which like emulated Minecraft in a diffusion model, and now like I think it's called Genie 2, the Google's World Foundation models. How do you think the technology will emerge, and how will it change the gaming industry?
I think we will get to a point where you could feasibly generate a game with one line. Like you can prompt a game into existence. I think we're still a bit far away from having a good game come out of that. But I do think it will open up barriers for people who want to be game developers. Like all the people who couldn't finish the program that I was in but still care and love games, they can become game devs now without having to like suffer and struggle. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with lowering barriers. I think a lot of the pain that you see in the industry and resistance is because people like barriers, because barriers means that other people don't have to compete with them. But I think if you have confidence and you move with intention, you encourage competition, because in competition means that you get to stand out. So either you believe that you can stand out or you believe you're going to be washed away by the tide. Lower barriers. Like honestly, if you look at what's happening in AI filmmaking, you're starting to see people being really, really creative with concepts and visuals that could never have been done otherwise. And there is like AI filmmaking happening, and all of a sudden, like, does that mean Steven Spielberg is a bad filmmaker now? I don't think so. Like James Cameron's still gonna make James Cameron movies. But now we have more people that can access creative pieces and imagery and visuals. Yeah, just like don't be afraid. Like I don't understand why people are so concerned. Like if you trust what you're doing and you're good at it, just be good. Yeah.
Thank you.
4 minutes. 3 minutes. I also appreciate that there are some people that never close their laptops. This is what I'm here for. Coding and at the same time getting life lessons. Talk about efficiency. Time maxing. Let's go.
Funny thing, my favorite Pokemon is also Scizor, so that was just really cool. But I was curious about like I feel like we're sort of shifting away from VR and more into AR. Like, do you think the future is going to be more about like AR games, or do you think we're still like sticking with VR games?
Yeah, great question. I think you saw the magic of AR with Pokemon Go. I do think that there is always going to be a space for VR, just because I still believe it is the most immersive way to experience something. It just depends on the design goals. Like, are you trying to build an experience that mixes the real world into your game? Then it's AR. If you're trying to completely supplement the real world and replace it, then it's VR. But it's a good question. Shout out to Memories of the Alhambra. It's like a Netflix K-drama. That game or that show really does a good job of explaining AR in real life and how it could be a monetizable real game. Yeah. All right. It looks like we're down to the last 2 questions. So I hope they're good ones. No pressure. It's okay if they're bad.
Hello, my name is Brandon. I don't know if you know what we're doing with our competition thing.
I hope so. I sponsored it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So I was just wondering if you have any initial tips for us. I mean, yeah, what are your first thoughts when you heard about the competition?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty awesome. I think it reminds me of when I was in my undergrad. So when I was in my undergrad, we were inspired by a YouTuber that made Mario play itself. And so we built like a genetic algorithm for Snake with reinforcement learning. So we basically trained this snake over and over many, many generations and tried to get the best snake brain. In terms of tips, I feel like if I did give you tips, it'd be cheating. But I'm happy to do one-on-one consultations for the low price of boba. No, you guys are going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be like do repetition. Just do testing over and over and over again, and then may the best AI brain win, right? All right, last question. Very, very last question, because I want to do this 10 Storms talk.
Just like getting a technical side a little bit for the reinforcement learning that's used to train your like games with like that
Mhm.
multi-agent stuff. I'm assuming like in research it's more abstract, but what types of like algorithms do you use, and what are the main considerations you have to think about?
So oftentimes it is tricky to make a language model understand 3-dimensional space. So a lot of it is just context. It's just making sure that as you go through these training cycles that the agent is understanding like, okay, I'm trying to make decisions in a 3D space. So it's like it comes down to like simple fine tuning sometimes. It comes down to like DPO looking at the outputs of the decisions that the agent makes and like giving it a thumbs up, thumbs down, and then just repeating the cycle over and over again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, there's more complicated techniques. I'm just not a PhD. All I'm doing is like exchanging information and sucking in as much machine learning as I can. So I'm sure there's, my co-founder is like spinning and trying to make sure that I'm not gonna tell anything crazy. Okay, so this is my LinkedIn. Please connect and actually connect. Like hit the 3 dots and connect. Don't just follow. All right. I would love to chat with you if you have further up questions. Otherwise, good luck and see you at the networking.